Hey, Laura, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Welcome to the show. How are you today? Where do we find you right now?
I'm at my house, which is also called the Syrup Factory, which is a house concert venue.
I
Very
love
nice,
that.
very nice. And you're in Halifax, right?
Correct.
Correct, correct. Awesome. Well, I guess to start things off, for people who may not be familiar with you or Side Door, I guess can you tell us a little bit about yourself and sort of how you founded Side Door and kind of what you guys do?
Sure. So I've worked in the music industry since about 2007, but sort of been a long time like person who goes to gigs and supports artists. And I am mostly obsessed with live, and so I would go to see live music all the time. And one of the things that happened, like when I had kids, was the shift in going to bars became a shift in like how do I see live music now? And so we started bringing shows into our house in 2011. And between that and working with artists directly, I just kept seeing how much of a problem it was to go on tour or do live shows or find bookings or even make any semblance of a living through live music. And knowing that recordings were not getting any revenue for artists anymore, it really became apparent that live music was like the bulk of what people were counting on. And then we would do these house shows and be able to give folks a lot more return on their investment because they were, they could strip it down, and people were willing to pay more. And anyway, so I knew there was something there. People were like, "Oh, you can do it because you're in the industry." Like, no, no, no. It's actually, I think it's pretty easy. I think it's just a few things that we could daylight to people to make it easy. So the idea of technology became a thing. So fortunately, through a friend, Rich O'Coin, who's a local artist, I met Dan Mangan, who is similarly like on the same bent of like house concerts are a good thing. They helped me in my career. And, we were really starting to work in the same worlds. And that's when we met in 2016. We founded the company in 2017, just trying to like basically make a house concert network was the first iteration of Side Door.
Yeah, no, I love the model because I mean I growing up here in New Brunswick, there's been tons of places like in Fredericton, Moncton, around like the mansion and stuff where you could just go and it has a certain exclusivity kind of vibe to it. Even some of the local spots that have since shut down, it has that intimate kind of feel where everybody knows kind of each other, and if you don't know them, you still feel at home as soon as you kind of like a kitchen party,
You
right?
got it.
And I find there's such a, I don't know, a need for that all the time because there are people who even if we weren't in a pandemic or even if there wasn't anything like that, like there's a need for live music, but there's also different ways to make it functionable for so many different people. Making it more accessible, inclusive, right? I think, and there's so many cool people doing stuff like that. So I'm super stoked to hear more about what you guys do.
Yeah, absolutely.
So how is can you tell us a little bit about how Side Doors kind of adapted to COVID-19? Because obviously with live shows not really being able to happen in a lot of places, did you guys switch to kind of helping artists do online shows as well, correct?
Yeah, that's right. So, by the time beginning of last year came around, we had a deal with South by Southwest to like tour artists from their hometowns to Austin to, make money on the way to the festival. We were putting like content creators in the vans with them. We're going to make a big splash in marketing, like break out into the US. And we had done like 400 shows up into this point, and we're really trying to step it up. And of course, I felt like when South by got canceled, it was like the beginning of everything getting canceled. And that was, I think, on, I don't know, the first week of March. And within 2 weeks, because Dan and I are like a country part, he's in Vancouver and I'm in Halifax, we had always used Zoom. And so we talked about online, like, for a minute. And then we're like, let's just try it and let's use Zoom because we can see each other. And that was really important to us because we wanted to feel like connected to the audience. And so Dan, as always, as the artist, is the guinea pig. So he tried it out. I think there was like, a few hundred people, like 400 people or something on that first show. And I remember just calling him afterwards and just being like, oh my God, that felt so great. And it felt so nice, like you were saying about like checking out the posters in my room here. And, like it was just nice to see people and be in their space with them. And with the artist, their like need for that, like any kind of reaction that's not just an emoji, was really huge. And so we leaned into the Zoom format really hard. And we've done more than 800 shows that way since. And we now have a broadcast lane too, so you can do it without seeing the audience. And we do hybrid too, where you do in person and you also stream the show. So like, I realize that, at the end of the day, all we're trying to do is help artists figure it out. And the tools or the medium that we do that is variable, but it's all in and around, connecting over the live event. So yeah, the online thing took off in a major way.
Right. I guess, do you see that the online portion of it, online shows, do you see that continuing, post COVID-19, like, when we're able to have mass events again?
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's really about the artists being able to reach fans that they may never ever get to see. Like that's been the biggest thing, is knowing who's in the audience and literally seeing them and being like, okay, well, these people, like I just was at the Vance Joy show on Saturday that we did, and there was people tuning in from all over the world, and probably places Vance Joy will never tour, even at the level of artists he's at. I mean, you think about some of the art, like our target, artists that we work with are sort of like have 1,000 dedicated fans or less, and so their opportunities for touring is limited. And so you start to see all these people reaching fans that they would never reach. So not just geography, but also mobility, access, just like, what their living circumstances are, what their like sensory circumstances are. There's a lot of, kids at these shows. Like there's just all these people who like you never see at a bar.
Right.
And they're at these shows. And I think that's why it's going to continue, because those folks are like, hey, this has been actually inaccessible to me up until this point.
Right. I think the other part from a business perspective is we've seen how bands have had to use, radio, classic touring, music videos, things like that to get their band out, right? But the thing I find interesting now is that, I mean, we've seen bands like Fish put out live shows of every tour that they're doing, and I'll buy them, even if I'm going to buy tickets to the show, right? I'll bring people over to the house, whatever it is. But they've been doing it for a while, and this is part of their main revenue stream. And if we see bands that go out and they're hitting the road hard for 10, 15 shows across Canada, they're sleeping in the van, they're not eating very well, they're beat up when they get back. So we've said it on the last few shows actually, that there's such a need, because even Teresa and I, we love going to live music, but we'll pay any day to hang out and do a live show, watch our bands on a live show. And I think that should be a huge part of every band that's doing something, but a big part with artists or really anyone that's doing anything for themselves, is sometimes you just don't have the tools or the variables to kind of get you to that part where you can market yourself. And I mean, the first of the pandemic, we saw bands that we were going to go see, obviously switching out tours like really fast. And then they were just putting out, live Facebook videos of them just at their jam space. And then people were saying, wait, do you have a PayPal? Do you have a GoFundMe? And they're like, no, we jam anyways. So I love how there's all these different ways that sometimes people like we started our show kind of backwards, right? But there's always a way to do something. And I think this side door really serves such a huge piece of service to the music industry, honestly, because I do think from an accessibility and inclusivity standpoint, there's people who really just want to contribute and help artists and support the bands they love and be part of it, but not have to be on planes or going places or dealing with the social anxiety of it. And I think that's awesome, right? Because it's
that's right.
work and organization to do. And
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned podcasts. Like we actually worked with Polaris a long time ago to do they wanted to go to different cities and do their podcasts live, talking about the choices for Polaris Prize and that sort of thing. And we've had since virtual podcasts, people just wanting to see the people who are podcasting and that sort of thing, ticket their live podcast recording on Side Door. And that's the other thing is it's just become, we never only did music. There's a voiceover workshop happening a couple of weeks, so you're right. Like you kind of just lean into whatever tools are available to you to reach the audience and wherever they're at.
Yeah, I think that's rad.
So one thing when I was getting prepping for this episode, I was looking on your bio, and it said you've been involved in the art scene since you were 14, going to all ages shows, and eventually getting into music photography and freelance writing. I was kind of curious, like, what do you remember about your early experiences with music as a teenager, and sort of how do you think that's kind of led to kind of where you are now with Side Door?
Yeah, well, it's interesting. There's a place called Cafe Olay that was on Barrington Street in Halifax. Was around for a long time, and it was an all ages dive place. Just so, and Condon, who ran the place, his heart was in the right place, but he never really had enough money to pay anybody. It was just like people just wanted to play. And I remember that being like one of the things that made me crazy was like, being friends with people in the band and just like napkin math happening and some really dodgy payouts and just being like, that's not fair. I was really caught up in the injustice of, the bleeding your heart out for the gig and never getting compensated. And so that sort of planted a seed for me for sure. But it was so juicy in those days, like early Halifax days. This is, right around when Sloan was breaking out and putting Halifax on the map, and all of Atlantic Canada was moving to Halifax to get a taste of it. And it still kind of feels that way sometimes, but New Brunswick's got some rad stuff going on. Even St. John is amazing. But it's like, I think when you're that age, and especially when you don't have a lot of options, you're always just like, how can we do this better? Like, how can this be better? And I think there was a lot of that energy that I never lost. I just still have it.
Right. And I guess, was there a lot of all age shows back then, or because it's kind of the same in some, over recent years in St. John with like Quality Block Party before pre-COVID, of course. But I think that finding like all age shows and organizing them I think has always been kind of a struggle for every generation, it seems.
Yeah, totally. Like the Pavilion here in Halifax has, had its ups and downs. I think it's been totally shut down, obviously during the pandemic, but even before that. And there's just not a lot of, it's hard to get a champion. It's usually a parent who's gonna do it, and then their kids grow old, and then the kids, like they just don't have a champion anymore. So it is hard. And I think that's why I like, the house concerts too, because we would always have kids show up, always. And I think it's really important. My kids, like I just had to shut them up from playing music downstairs because they grew up having music around them all the time. And now, like, I wasn't like this. I didn't want to play the piano, and I have to tell my son not to play the piano now, which is amazing. And I think that's a huge influence of just being around it all the time. I think it's really important.
I think the work that goes into making a safe space is also really important. And I don't think a lot of people really want to do the due diligence or put in the liability measures to ensure that, people that may be underage, or if there's liquor licenses or anything, they would rather just make the money and have one demographic foot the bill. And I think when it comes to, some of the house shows, some of the bars that would allow, like I had a lot of experience going into underage into bars. But it was that thing where, don't be acting a fool, listen to the band, pay your cover. And if the liquor inspector comes in, get out. Right. But
Absolutely.
I also think it's, important too. Like there's a lot of folks, I haven't been to Halifax in a few years, so I haven't been able to see any shows, but I can speak from the experience here in St. John. one of the things quite a few of the groups are doing like safe spaces, show buddies, and they're working with like Imperial Theater, some of the bigger spaces to make it all ages. So yes, there will be drinking, but you know that you have that screening process. And I'm sure,
Yeah.
you know, there's a 12 or 13-year-old going to your house, you're not, you know, serving them. There's, you know, due diligence in place. And I think that plays such an important part. Like that's what made me love music so much growing up, is the people around me didn't make me feel excluded, and they made me feel safe and a part of it. And if I
Yeah.
could do anything to protect that, I was 100% okay to do that.
Well, absolutely. And look, and I'm so, you know, I remember I got to a point, I worked in an industry association for a long time in Music Nova Scotia. And, you know, I remember getting to a point at the conferences where I was like, oh, all you have to do to sort of get ahead in the music industry is stay sober at these things. Like, and at gigs, and like when you want to meet people, and when you want to, and I'm not a teetotaler, but like, you know, by any means, but I I I really noticed the association with alcohol all the time with music had such a ridiculously terrible effect on the artists who were just trying to, this was their scene where they were at work. And for the especially the younger fans who were seeing that culture perpetuated, like this is what you have to do. You have to drink your face off, or you're being plied with drinks instead of money at the end of the night. Like, here's your six pack, have a nice day. Like, that attitude breeds incredible problems later on, addiction problems, mental health problems. And like, I was pretty done with it by the time I was midway through working at Music Nova Scotia. So I just quit drinking when I was out at shows and at events and stuff like that, because it was just disrespectful. Like, people would be shouting during the show and stuff like that. I'm like, this is not, you're not watching music, you're just yelling. Like, you know, so I think that was a shift in me that I found for sure, that I was like, I really just want to create a safe space, like you say, not only for people to go and attend, but also for the artists just to feel like we're here for you, like we're here for the show.
Yeah. And if there's going to be riffraff, it's the right kind of riffraff. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
That's
totally.
the way I look at it. And me and Therese, we joke all the time thinking that we were like old nannies or something, but we go out, you know, not all the time. So you go out to a nice show and you've got beer being spilled all over you and people bumping into you. Can't, like, I'm not there to have a conversation. I'm there to see the band, or else I would watch them on YouTube or spin the record. And
That's
I think,
right.
does it become, you know, are you nagging, or are you, and I think that I love that, you know, people want to go and see shows this way, but they have their option. If you want to go see a stadium show when it's possible, you can do that too, right?
Yeah.
Kiss is still playing, so I'm sure you can go see them somehow in some major city somewhere in the world.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah. I guess so. I know Side Door has helped facilitate so many live shows all over the place. I guess, what are some of your favorite live shows that you've been to? What are some of your favorite concert experiences?
Oh man, we were just talking the other day, my husband and I, who's a filmmaker here in Halifax, and we took the kids when they were, I think, 8 and 10 to go to Osheaga. And it was
Courageous.
so
Props to you.
it was amazing. And like Run the Jewels were playing, Foster the People, Lord was the headliner. I mean, it was insane. And the first, what's that?
Chromeo played that one, didn't they?
Chromeo played. Yeah, it was like, yeah, so whatever. Yeah, it was like 3 years ago, I think. And so anyway, they like, they had no idea what they were getting in for. They've always seen live music, but they had never seen anything like this. Like, this just like villages, and it poured rain the first like hour that we were there in the afternoon, and we had to convince the kids to stay for like the rest of the day soaking wet. And we're like, look, everybody else is fine, we're all dancing, it's like, it's gonna be fine. But the festival experience, like watching it from my kids' perspective, was so hilarious and amazing. And we were like carrying them home in the subway that night. But that was definitely a huge highlight. What's that?
You will like this when you're 20, I swear.
Oh man, yeah. And like, my son was breakdancing, and all the 20-year-olds who were all stoned were like, oh my God, this is the best thing ever.
I
had
can
no
imagine
idea.
having those stories. Yeah, imagine. Oh, you know, young, my parents took me to Osheaga, like hanging out, breakdancing.
Right.
I'd be
it was so great.
So
yeah. Well, and then the flip side, like I actually took, sort of a sabbatical from my life, I say sometimes, but when I left Music Nova Scotia, I was at this point where I was like, I know I need to do something on my own, and I'm not really sure how to do it. And I knew it was something in live music. So I went to mentor with somebody in LA for 4 months. So I lived there by myself. And, the family was going to come at first, and then they didn't. And anyway, so I ended up there for the whole time, for 4 months. Here I was like 33 or something like that. No, 34. And I think I ate like just peanut butter and jelly sandwiches so that I could save all of my next to no money to go to gigs like 3 times a week in LA. And I saw like Lauryn Hill at the Greek Theater. I saw like one of my favorite like old time bands, Low, at where did I see them? I forget the where I saw them, but just like bands I would never see. A lot of little gigs too. And I was so committed to just seeing as much as possible in 4 months. I'm like, this is it. I mean, I'm so glad I did that.
Right.
That's a great experience. Wow.
Right.
That's awesome.
Where did you, I guess, where were some of the venues that you went to? Did you go to like the Whiskey or any of the other iconic Los Angeles venues at all?
Yeah, I didn't make it to the Whiskey. I'm just like gonna blank on all the names because I'm just so burnt out right now. But I did travel north to San Francisco, and I saw Courtney Barnett at the Fillmore. No, that's not what it's called.
Yeah. Well,
The really old one theater. I actually made a playlist on Spotify that was every single band that I saw in LA. So I kept adding songs to this playlist. It's still up on my Spotify now. But
love to share it.
Yeah, I'll share it with you. And just like such a random collection of music. But yeah, like, LA, man, the venues, like everything, every sort of anything. And like the outdoor spaces too, because you can. And like, I was in heaven.
Yeah, even spaces you don't realize, they just like open up and
Yes.
Weird.
Right. Yeah. I guess so when the world kind of opens up again, and bigger in-person shows can happen, I guess, is there any concerts or artists on your bucket list that you hope to go see?
Well, I had Jimmy Eat World tickets right before the pandemic. I'd like to reclaim those.
Love it.
There's some artists that I actually have really dug into during the pandemic who I'm like, would love to see now. Like Phoebe Bridgers, I actually met first by listening to Better Oblivion Community Center, which, she is their project with Connor Barrist. And I didn't even know her really and that just one of their albums was just like my companion for so long. So I'd love to see Phoebe Bridgers. Same with I forget the lead from Big Thief. I'm trying to remember her name. She actually went into the woods and recorded this amazing album during the pandemic solo. And there's probably some, like, I actually want to go back and see Lord, like not with my kids dying of exhaustion. That'd be nice. I'd see Courtney Barnett again a million times. I would see, like, I don't know. I have so many. This is never gonna end. This is gonna be a long podcast. Yeah.
I'd be kind of curious too, like in terms of like how, obviously besides live music, how you consume music. Do you do you collect records, or are you a streaming gal? Like, I guess how do you go about listening to music day to day? What are your music listening habits?
So I do the Spotify thing out of ease. And I actually deliberately got the family account because my kids were messing my algorithm so bad.
Oh, you can't have that.
My year end was like, what is this? This was so bad. So everybody has their own account. And then I buy records because we also have a record player all set up the sound system downstairs. And I still really dig into that vibe, and I wish I still smoked, because then I would smoke and listen to records at the same time, but the smoking just kind of got dropped. But like I really get into the tactile, like reading through the lyrics and just like looking at the beauty of them. And so there's a really great record store in town called Obsolete, and like basically we'll always just bring in whatever you want at any time. And yeah, I really dig records still. And I never threw out my CDs or my tapes. I still have all of them.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
I know, like, I love a lot of CD people are like, they're making a comeback. I've
Yeah.
seen people purchasing more.
I
and, like,
still
bringing
grab them
out.
every time I'm at the thrift store. I still grab them.
Right.
Right.
Really?
Oh, gold,
Wow.
gold. So
Right.
much gold. What? $2.99. Oh my God. Yes.
Yeah.
My other question for you in regards to like collecting music is where you do a lot of home shows. What's the merch situation? Because if I were having shows, I'd be buying a record from everyone that came in.
I do.
CD.
Yeah, I have merch from I think absolutely everybody who came in, and I always get them to sign the record. So I actually have a goal in my living room where we have the shows, I want to put up like a peg situation where I kind of just like stack like this, where all the records can just sort of be on the wall, and you can see all the messages from all the artists who played around, because usually it's right after the show and they say something about the show on the record, and it's just they're little pieces of that memory that I can hang on to. I got a Dan Mangan hat somewhere kicking around here. I've got lots. I have so like when I go out walking the dog, like I'm basically head to toe merch. Like that's what I'm in.
I figured, right? And I was going to say, do you have like a room dedicated to it? Is it the whole basement? Because I mean, I would probably be getting a couple of extra of everything in case my friends come over, and then selling the artist merch. Like you're a real top shipper of merch.
I definitely give music and music merch away for presents all the time. Yeah.
Yeah, we're always taking some of our profits from any donations we get when we're doing events or anything like that. And we buy artist merch, albums, things like that. And then in our pen pal system and our letters and things, we send out merch. Just, it might be something that somebody's never heard of before, that they might not see on Instagram or stream on Spotify. And I don't know, we find the album merch, whether it be tapes, digital download codes, 45s, every format is great. People will find a way to listen to it.
Especially, absolutely.
And it's the hip thing to do now, right?
Right.
So yeah, it's like I found maybe 5-10 years ago, you couldn't find as many records as maybe you wanted to, but now the shops, they're bringing in as many tapes and CDs as they are records still.
Right.
So
Crazy.
it's a game changer, and there's more.
That's wild.
Right. What was that one you mentioned? The one in Halifax, Obsolete.
Obsolete. Yeah.
Once the bubble opens up, if it opens up I'll be going to Halifax at the end of May, fate willing, and I definitely need to check that place out.
Yeah, and Taz is still around. Obsolete's just closer to me, so I always go to Obsolete. Ian up there is fantastic. Yeah, I mean, like I had all my tapes, and one year at Nova Scotia Music Week, when we were actually in White Point Beach Lodge in Liverpool, the final night, the staff had like this 10-room cabin, and so the final night I just had a tape party, and I brought every tape I had, and we just played tapes all night, and a lot of them were just mixtapes, so like just crazy mixes of stuff, and probably like recordings from boyfriends or whatever that would be on there. And it's just like, I love that stuff. There's nothing like that, especially the mixtapes. Like you can't, there's all the tapes we made going surfing, like everything's got a vibe, everything's got a memory attached to it. It's so good.
It's true. Like I know when we talk about records, that, a lot of people talk about their love for like the package of it, the tactile experience of it. But I think, even though a lot of people like don't have a cassette player anymore, like there's like mixtapes had a very similar culture, right? In a very artistic form. Like I saw a book once that had it was about the art of the mixtape and like had the different playlists and the art and the creativity that went into it. And I think it's getting some appreciation again, which is really cool to see.
I'd say
definitely
that the industry and the way that we pay musicians has changed. So the way that we just burn or rip CDs or tape off of the radio, it's not really a great thing to do anymore, right? So it's not necessarily like I can't just go burn you a CD off of the stuff I've downloaded from Apple, right?
Right.
So it's interesting. You can make a mixed Spotify playlist and send somebody a URL, right?
Yeah.
Because I remember, I think it was about 7 or 8 years ago, a friend of mine, she's been on the show, she's a collector as well, Monique GNA. She was moving to the UK and she was on my roller derby team, and a few of us really liked music. And she said, I want to start like, I don't know, like a book club, but for music. And I said, well, why don't we do like a mix CD kind of club? And we'll do 10 or 15 of us every month. We'll do a theme. And then we'll draw a name out of whoever of the 15 people that want to join that month. And then what you have to do is you have to make the CD, make the album art, and write out all of the tracks, right? And it has to match.
Yes.
And we did it for about 3 or 4 months, and then it kind of just dropped. But it was one of my favorite things to do. But it was at a time where, you know, I was like, is this bad? Am I doing something wrong by making these, you know, tapes or things? So I find that interesting, you know, creating music when you're not a musician, right? You know,
Well, that's it. Like, I mean, we talked about that too, is like, you know, you kind of have to balance it, right? Like Spotify is infinitely easier to listen to music than it is to, you know, figure out what you're going to do in terms of a physical device. But at the same time, there's so many more ways that you can support artists other than buying a physical piece of music. And I think artists are realizing this now. But what I'm always like worries me is that there's like a huge trend to just needing to put out more and more content endlessly that's not music. That I'm like, well, you know, sure, there's an expectation and want that, you know, you'd consume anything that this artist put out there, but at what to what limit? Like when is it enough? You know, like when I know a lot of artists are just like they really that's the hard part, is that so many who are introverts actually and wear their hearts on their sleeve, and the amount of times that they have to put something out there it's a lot of effort. So like to sort of reconcile that with your desire as a fan is a tricky thing. I have people asking me this all the time. It's like, how can I support an artist if I don't want to buy a CD because I don't have a CD player, but like they aren't giving me any other options? And I'm like, well, they probably have a donate button, you know, they go to their live shows, buy tickets for the things, but it is a conundrum, because I think fans would actually spend more money if there was more ways to do it.
oh yeah,
100%.
yeah. Even on a monthly kind of subscription, like we use Patreon. A lot of people use that. But even,
Yep.
you know, when I said at the first of the pandemic, we saw a couple of people just saying, oh, well, you know, it sucks this weekend, the show's canceled, but we're just going to, you know, put the Facebook Live up into the jam space. But then it was like, oh,
How do you monetize that though?
but then they're like, oh, we're not thinking about monetize. We do that on tour. We don't know how to do that. But there's people who are in the business of doing that, you know, and I think that it's sometimes it just plays a part in whether you're in it for the money or in it to make it something really good. And we've struggled with that even as a podcast, because you really care about just connecting with people from all over that love music, no matter who they are, and no matter what they do, right? And you can be anyone in the world, but we've never focused on making it huge or, you know, a big business plan. We both should, because we're both, you know, in this line of work and, you know, could do it. But I think we just care so much about helping the people that we have on the show, and vice versa, that, you know, sometimes it's just hard to monetize. And most people don't want to deal with the accounting of it or making it a business.
Yeah.
So, and I mean, that's a whole part of, you know,
Yeah.
some of the programs that are starting to be offered now to help people understand how to, it's great you play the guitar, but if you're going to go out and spend money and get gas and all these things, that's an expense, and it plays a big part, right?
And also to, you know, to that point, it's like to create something like you could do, again, we could like totally, yeah, we're on Patreon and we're working on stuff like that. But, you know, to create something like this and to have like a website and hosting and all this stuff, it costs money. So it's even to either way, like even if you wanted to keep it just like a hobby, it does cost money.
Absolutely.
Right. And it's like, how do you do that without, you know, looking through, you know,
making it a barrier to action, but also being able to support at an entry level of purchasing power too.
Right.
Oh yeah, totally. No, keeping and so many artists don't want to charge more, and we actually just introduced pay what you want on Side Door, and of course people are paying more than artists expect always. But
Right.
at least it lets people who can't pay that enough, that that amount, like $1 or whatever. So yeah.
I think that's we've seen that a lot at some of the benefits since the pandemic, where we've seen a couple events where it's been a couple $100 a goal and it's been thousands of dollars raised for somebody. So it's people definitely have purchasing power, and they use it passionately, I think, whether it be on online spending or bands or whatever. And I think that music really, in rough and the best of times, it really plays such a vital part in the day to day. And yeah, I think we're going to see a lot of different shifts in the industry in the next year or two as people start to maybe have to prolong tours, or because I mean, even just in Ontario, I saw it was 4,500 cases yesterday of COVID.
Oh yeah, it's just mental. Yeah.
And like I would have thought of going to like Quebec, Ontario, places like that a year ago to see shows. So it's it definitely you don't have to be going to LA for it to be impacting bands, right? So
no, so true.
Yeah.
Well, Laura, thank you so much for joining us. Before we let you go, we have to ask you the question that we ask every single guest. So you're on a desert island and you can only bring 3 records with you. What are those 3 records and why?
Oh man, okay. Paul Simon's Rhythm of the Saints, because I listened to that album so much when I was living in England for a year, and just it's such a gorgeous album. It's so friggin' beautiful. Quicksand Slip. It's heavier, but it just helped. Again, it was like a band I was introduced to in high school, and we listened to a lot running around going to surf trips, and it just is my happy place listening to them. And it always just I get psyched up listening to that album. So if I have to like make a log cabin on the desert island, then I want to have something to get psyched up with.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think probably gosh, there's this Canadian band called the Evening Hymns, and they wrote this album. I forget what the title of the album is called at this moment, but it's an album about when his dad died, and he lived in this cabin in the woods, and it's just some of the most beautiful storytelling I've ever heard. And the vinyl's got like the drawing of the map of the woods and the cabin on it, and it's just stunning. It's a stunning piece of art, and also just like talks so much about the closeness between him and his dad, and it's just humanity in a record. So yeah, I'm gonna have to choose those 3 now, but I'll regret not choosing others later. I know.
Like, damn it.
That's how it always is.
That's how it always is. Like we always say, like ours, like people, like we say ours, and it's like it changes, like even from episode to episode. It's an evolving concept, but it's always interesting to like hear people's picks and why, and really cool. Those are some good choices.
Yeah, no, still definitely good choices. I just find like if you had asked me 10 years ago and I heard my choices now, I'd be like, Caitlin, how is Nirvana not on your desert island disc, you young lady? Right now, it's like, no, I'm a seasoned woman now. I'm bringing Steely Dan to the island. Thank you so much. Right? It's some Biggie. We're going to throw it down, right?
Yes.
Right? You got to have the jams, right? So things and it's fine. And maybe in a few more years, I'll be a more seasoned woman again.
Yeah, we'll be listening back to old episodes, and we're gonna be like, why the hell did we pick those? Like, what were we?
Oh man,
right?
Totally love it.
Yes. Well, in case people listening want to get in touch with you or learn more about Side Door, where can they find you guys?
So all the socials are Side Door Access, except Instagram, it's sidedoor.access. And I'm usually pretty handy on Twitter. I'm Nova Scotia Music, because when I worked at Music Nova Scotia, I thought it would be hilarious to steal that handle. So I did. So I'm Nova Scotia Music at most socials too.
Awesome.
No, thank you so much for joining us. I really was looking forward to the interview when Charisse told me she lined it up. And I don't know, I think it's great. I hope we do get down to see you sometime soon if the bubble opens up soon.
Yeah, come to a show at the house.
Yeah,
We'd love to.
Oh, that will definitely be on the radar. And we'll be, sharing the virtual events and spreading the word of Side Door with everyone, and really appreciate your time.
Oh, thanks, buds. It's great to talk to you. You're doing a great job with this podcast. Keep it up.
Thank you. Awesome. Cool.
Yeah, all good. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Okay, we'll talk to you hopefully soon. Just let me know if you need anything else.
Yeah, for sure. Send me the link to the playlist.
Any photos?
I got some photos too as well.
Great.
But if you think of any others you wanted to send, and in terms of when that episode will come out, we're kind of recording a bunch over the next couple
next week.
Next week?
In a
okay.
week.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, next week in a week.
Sweet.
Yeah, sweet. So when it's live, I'll send you the link, and we'll tag you guys on everything and all that fun stuff. So
great.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys. Keep safe and stay happy, hopefully.
We'll try. We'll try. It's like I keep thinking, as you mentioned, Kate, like how we have it pretty good right now. You just got to try to keep it in perspective, right?
Yeah. And if you,
absolutely,
of course, you're always welcome down here in St. John if you guys ever get a chance to come down. You know, lots of spots. There's lots of nice Airbnbs around, right?
I know, I love it.
Great record collections. Bring some records down.
Yeah,
absolutely. I will do that. Yeah, St. John's great.
Yeah,
that's awesome. Drop us a line.
Yeah,
awesome.
Okay,
thank you so much again.
Okay, we'll talk to you soon. Bye.
Keep in touch. Cheers. Bye.